You can get the body you want. You can achieve the career success you want. You can live the life you want with enough commitment and patience, but you can't get there on your timeline, and you can't get there without bumps in the road.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Chasing Excellence. My name is Patrick Cummings. As always, I'm joined by Ben Bergeron. Every week here on the show, we dedicate some time to exploring how we can live a life of better health and increased fulfillment. We answer your questions about the 5 factors of health, dive deep on living a life of excellence, and explore the strategies and frameworks to help us chase what truly matters. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hello, and how are you, Ben?
I'm doing great. Loving life. Thank you, Patrick.
Good. Happy to hear it. Good to see you. Well, we've got this episode. We've got listener questions about getting CrossFitters to see the benefits of yoga, navigating snack time, and keeping our kids active. Our workout will be a chat about how we balance life alongside our spouses. And we'll wrap up by pointing you towards a documentary worth watching. Ready to jump into the warm-up?
Let's go. Let's do it.
All right. We start each episode with your questions about the 5 factors of health, those few fundamental behaviors that most positively affect our performance, vitality, and longevity. Those 5 factors: how we eat, how we move, how we think, how we connect, and how we recover. I'm going to jump into our move category. This is a question from Allison. She says, I teach yoga and CrossFit and coach CrossFit at an affiliate. I've been teaching yoga for 3 years and coaching CrossFit for 2. I've also worked for the affiliate for 5 years, cleaning and front desk tasks. So all the athletes know me, and I feel as though I've gained their trust as a coach and a friend. My yoga class is more of a mobility for athletes. We aren't doing headstands or anything crazy, mostly just doing static stretching, balance poses, or some sort of slow vinyasa style flow. It's very beginner friendly, and I've expressed this to the athletes as well. My question: how do I get more CrossFit athletes to try my yoga class? I see so many people who need the mobility training. Their overhead squat could look much better if they spent more time in child's pose. CrossFit for yoga. Yoga for CrossFit.
Yeah. Both. Part of this is that discussion is yoga beneficial for CrossFitters? And then the other one is essentially a marketing issue. So let's do the first one first. I'm a big believer that certain types of yoga are very beneficial for CrossFitters. And it sounds like Allison is doing that type. If CrossFit is the intensity, the strength, the power, then there should be a yin to that yang, because we are looking for that balance. And Allison's type of yoga sounds like the kind that I would want to be practicing at my affiliate as well, that we do practice at our affiliate, which is more of this vinyasa or flow, slow roll. But the truth is, the one that I found that worked the best is truly, it's called yin yoga, which is so ironic because it is the yin to the yang, which is truly, as Allison said, holding stretches. And that's what this is. It's very little flow. It takes out the balance essentially and takes out all of the headstands or other advanced things. So I would recommend CrossFitters don't need to be holding Warrior 2 for 3 minutes. That's our shoulders need the time to recover from that. And just, I get it, like holding your arms out to the side, like that's why a lot of CrossFitters don't like to do it, is because they're used to pressing 155 pounds above their head. And then they get in this like Warrior 2 pose and their arms get super tight and they're like, why? Oh my God. Well, it's because you're supposed to be recovering at that time, not getting that form of strength through that. So before I go too far down some diatribe about the differences of yoga and what we need, my suggestion to Allison would make it really specific, which really is recovery and stretching, because as you said, more time in child's pose, better overhead squats. Totally agree. Okay, then from there it becomes a marketing thing. And here's the way I would do this. If you are truly doing that and your members that are doing the yoga class are seeing benefits, they will be talking about it to the other members. And without you asking, they will be recruiting them and pulling them in. If that's not happening, we might not be doing that. They might not be seeing the benefits, and maybe we are holding tree pose for too long. Maybe we are in Warrior 2 for too long. And that way, in that sense, we're not meeting the needs of the CrossFit athlete. We're trying to do too much of the traditional yoga in air quotes. So the first one is word of mouth. And that should be happening. If the class is awesome and doing what you say it's doing, it should be doing its thing. But there are some more tactical ways that we could be doing this. Let's talk about a couple of them quickly. First one, most powerful one, is if the people that are taking your class are seeing benefits, ask them what benefits they're seeing and record them saying it on video. Do a little B-roll behind that video and get 3 to 5 people to do it. And you have a nice little testimonial video that you post on your social, the social of your gym, and everywhere else that might be the social of those individuals. And all of a sudden, you got this little momentum built up and people are going, oh, like Jennifer really likes that. I didn't realize that she's, gotten ... from taking Allison's class. The next one is what I think is most missed in affiliates. And that is that we run an event. We have a new policy, procedure. We have something that we want to communicate to our members. And we do a really poor job of it. And if we want to tell people about Allison's yoga class and get the people to the yoga class, generally what happens is it's probably put on the schedule, and then the coaches might make an announcement about it once, and then maybe every 4 months there's a post about it on social. That's zero communication. That's just, it's closer to zero than it is to constant communication. As opposed to, here's the other way to think of this. Talking doesn't count. So if you are, and this kind of goes against the word of mouth thing, but for you as a business, you talking about it doesn't count. They need something physical to touch and take. So meaning something physical like, do you have a announcements chalkboard in your gym that needs to change every day? Because it doesn't change every day, people stop seeing it. But if it's new every day, people stop seeing it. This is like old school marketing 101. Get the sandwich board outside of the where everyone walks by it. And one day it's about the new thing you're selling in the store. The next one is about you're adding a new class on Saturday. The next one is you're doing a Halloween throwdown. The next one is Sarah or Allison's yoga class. And people are seeing this new thing that's fresh every time. We want to be able to have that, an announcements board. The next thing, do you have a poster in the gym that talks about Allison's class? Do you have flyers? Do you have postcards? Do you have are coaches making announcements? Is it on the website? Because if it's not there all the time, it's not there. It's just another thing that kind of comes and goes and people go, oh, it's not. We need to be constantly communicating about it. So that would be my kind of 3-step approach is make sure it's a product market fit. So it creates word of mouth, create a quick little testimonial video, and then ABC, always be communicating about it.
Love that. I'm just going to double click on the last thing because it makes me smile because it's something you and I have talked about before in various
You should
things.
Say you're going to double click on it?
Double click on it. Yeah.
I've never heard that term, but I love it.
I'm sure I stole it from somebody. But the thing that you and I have laughed about before is only when you yourself, so Allison or the gym owner, only when you yourself feel like you have said this thing so many times that you are so tired of hearing yourself talk about your yoga class. Only then have you said it enough times for people to really hear it. We think, to your point, and it's a great point, you say it once, we put it out in the newsletter, we put it on social media once, like what else are we supposed to do? That times 10, because only when you do that will it get through all the noise and all the announcements and your members, all the various things that your members are thinking about and doing and planning for. Only when you're like, God, I have to be annoying them because I'm annoying myself. Okay, good. You've probably hit it enough.
Yeah. I mean, marketing 101 is 7 equals 1.
Yeah.
Like right. It's the 7th time that you've said it that they hear it for the first time.
Right.
All the other 6 are just basically like opening doors.
Yes. All right, cool. Love that. Next question is from Hillary. It's in our eat category. She says, my 2 kids, 2 and 1 years old, go to a home daycare. Food is provided to them, which is great and extremely helpful. However, my husband and I are happy with the foods, are not happy rather with the foods that they are being fed For example, for breakfast, they're offered a muffin, bagel, French toast, or cereal. In our house, protein is our number one priority. I would say I won't say we eat perfect, but we try our best to eat unprocessed foods and make sure we eat grass-fed meats, fruits, etc. My husband and I go back and forth on saying something to our daycare provider about not offering highly processed foods to the kids. We understand that it's not our place to make judgments about the food she provides and also personally eats. Thankfully, fruit is also offered at breakfast and lunch, and that is something my two kiddos crush. My main fear is that if I provide the kids with their own foods, that it may lead to other psychological effects. I previously had a friend whose mother controlled what she ate, and she would sneak food, etc., which I do not want for my kids. However, I know them eating highly processed foods leads to health risks. What do you guys suggest? Should I have the hard conversation with daycare, or just leave it and make sure we continue to feed them top-notch foods outside of daycare?
Okay, that's a mouthful. Okay, so I think there's a couple questions in there. The first one is, or maybe a couple takes on this. The first one is, regardless of whether you talk to them or not, I would do what you just said at the very end, Hillary, which is try to control and give them the best quality foods that you can while you control what they eat. So, I just really like this idea, whether it's your kids or yourself, is at home. You sent me, Patrick, a podcast, Tim Ferriss podcast recently that I'm listening to right now. And one of the things he said in it was, you try to create as little friction as possible to allow you to be able to instill healthy habits. Well, similar to that is you should create as much friction as possible to make bad habits harder. And one of the ways to do that is if you don't have crap food in the house, that it takes a lot of friction to be able to make a bad impulsive decision while at home. So this is the easiest thing in the world for us as parents is we have eliminated the arguments about sweets, desserts, bad snacks at home because they don't exist in our home. It literally never comes up. And that's not an exaggeration. It can't because it's not there. The hardest time is, and our kids are already talking about it, is Halloween. Because then it's there, but we try to remove it as quickly as we can. So that's the first one. Now, once we have that kind of a nice tidy box, let's talk to the real question of should, and if yes, how do we communicate with, or how do we have this conversation with the daycare? And here's the way I would go through this. The first one is do a little self-assessment and ask yourself, what is the culture of the daycare? This matters. And not in terms of, are they nice people? Are they growth-minded? Are they looking for feedback? And are they interested in a holistic approach to raising and educating young children? Because not everyone is. And some people see feedback as an attack. And if I had that sense, I wouldn't broach the subject at all. I just wouldn't. Because it's not worth it to me, create that level of conflict or awkwardness for something that's probably not going to be changed anyway, that they're going to see as antagonistic. But if they are interested in becoming better and they are interested in the holistic approach to what this daycare could be, and they are trying to pursue excellence and then yeah, I think it's our position to potentially help educate and further what they're doing for their kids. And then here is the strategic place or way that I would do that. Here's what I would have the conversation, because it's challenging, because wherever they are coming from that, they're thinking that's okay. So we have to try to start with we have to find a common thing. This is that whole thing is there was a book written start with yes. I don't know if I agree with that, but it does help to get on a same starting point for this conversation. And that starting point would be, instead of going into bread is a processed carbohydrate and we're trying to lower carbohydrates because if you don't burn the carbohydrates, they get stored as fat or it creates hyperinsulinemia and forget about all that. Most people at this point recognize that sugar is bad. So I wouldn't go at the whole breakfast and try to go for wholesale change. I would go, hey, I'm wondering if, we could have a conversation about what you guys are doing for breakfast. I know you guys are trying to do so much for our kids and really appreciate it. One of the things that we've learned as health advocates, and we're really passionate about this, is that sugar isn't great for kids. And the people go like, we agree. Yeah, absolutely. They're going to say, we agree. It's like, great. So I just want to show this to you because it was shocking when I first saw this. And then don't do it in hypothetical. Literally bring in to them the package of muffins with the nutrition labels on it. And also bring in a candy bar. And then you go, and what this is really crazy when we first saw this, and don't go like, we're better than you, that type of thing. It's like, I was shocked and go, look at this. Like this, the blueberry muffins have, a blueberry muffin will have somewhere between 30 and 40 grams of sugar. A Milky Way has 30 grams of sugar. So we're going, we're giving our kids candy bars for breakfast. And or bring in nutrition, bring in two donuts. A blueberry muffin has 470 calories, which is the equivalent of 2 chocolate frosted donuts. And just go like, this is what we're giving our kids. And they're going to be like, what? No. Like, no, we don't. Okay, we don't do that. We do bran muffins. Okay, most bran muffins have between 20 and 35 grams of sugar. It's like, it's crazy. But don't do it in hypotheticals. Show them the nutrition labels. It's so different when it's black and white in front of them. And that's what I would do is try to go for the muffins and the sugary cereals because it's really quick wins. The bagels is going to be tough because bagel is bread and you got to convince people against bread. And I don't even know if I'm against certain types of bread. So I wouldn't even go there. So that's what I would do. And just like changing nutrition is like changing religion. People have been believing this forever and they're experts on it because they've been eating 3 meals a day. So you got to go for these really quick, easy wins. So start with sugar's bad for you. Yup, sugar's bad for you. Cool. Let's look at the sugar content, like in a factual way, not a hypothetical way, and go, is there a better option here than this? And just go there. And I wouldn't necessarily go even French toast. Like, what's the difference between French toast and an egg sandwich? A lot of healthy people have an egg sandwich. French toast is just eggs and bread. So I don't think it's necessarily bad. It's when they doused it in maple syrup. So you go, and by the way, maple syrup, and you have that. So now you've gotten like, leave the bagels out for now. Go, hey, instead of muffins, what if we did something, we did fruits. Instead of the sugary cereals, what if we did better cereals? Instead of the French toast, what if we just did something, or instead of maple syrup, what if we did something else? That's where I would go with that.
Dig it. All right. Last question we've got for our warm-up is from Sean. It's in our Connect bucket. He says, I'm a married father of 3 teenagers. All kids are active in their competitive sport and have been members at a local affiliate with myself. Only one has stayed consistent and seems to truly enjoy CrossFit. My 16-year-old plays competitive hockey, but as he has gotten older, the team's ice time and games, a number of games has lessened. He was always at least a 2-sport type kid, but that has dropped to only hockey now as well. He spends more time comfortably playing video games, and if we limit that, he will simply revert to watching videos on a phone or computer. Any suggestions as to how to get him more active without quote unquote forcing him to go to get outside or work out? We feel like it's just been a gradual decline that has gotten too comfortable. For what it's worth, I'm active and still play sports. His mother is not. So tightrope walking at times with this subject.
Cool. So former 2-sport athlete, now plays just hockey and plays much less hockey than he once did, filling the space with screens. Yep. Okay. 3 strategies. Not saying any one is better than the other. First one, in terms of the screens, create really black and white rules. And I get it's hard with the phone and it's hard with the computer. Probably a little bit easier with an iPad, but you're not allowed to use your screens until after dinner. Like there's no screens until after dinner. And just, or, our kids are younger. So the way we do it is there's no screens at all during the week. They can do it between 8 and 10 on Saturdays and Sundays in the morning. It's basically when Heather and I go to the gym, and they can do it after dinner on Friday and Saturday. So just create black and white. It's just like, it's so much easier than navigating the ambiguity of the gray. Okay, that's probably
similar to the snacks, right? Where the in terms of just like black and white, there's not here, so we don't have to have the fight.
Yes.
And
exactly.
now you say, okay, it's between these hours. We don't have to have a fight because like we've already told you what.
And
the
now
rules
we
are.
still fight. Like it's still like they still ask for it and they still want it. And
of course.
But it's it's crazy.
But you can. But I think the important thing is there's a consistent answer every single time. Like,
exactly
can we do Paw Patrol
like, no,
now?
we don't
like,
do
it's
that.
not. Yeah, exactly.
We don't. Yes.
Versus like there are no rules and we're just the sense of it is like we're just making this up as we go. At least the kids have an understanding of where those lines are.
I love that you went to Paw Patrol. We're out of the Paw Patrol phase, but
I did
see there's a Paw Patrol movie coming out. I was like, oh my gosh, guys, remember that? Yeah. Chase, Ryder.
That's right.
Marshall, Sky. Option number 2, pull them into, like, do it with them. Like, you're active, do the active with them. So when you go to the gym, they go with you. That's it. And you're doing it just in terms of like, hey, we're going to connect. We're going to do this thing together. It might be semi-forced in the beginning. That's our roles as parents sometimes is to make sure our kids, like not every kid is excited to do homework. And it's the parents' responsibility to make sure that they're doing the work that makes them go forward in life. So, but I think it's very different than it's jumping in the well. I'm doing this thing with you, bud. Let's go do this thing. And that's very different than, you need to go to the gym and, see you when you get back. But that is the third way as well, is if the two-sport athlete gets reduced to one sport and that one sport gets cut in half, find another activity. Like there's so much to be said. It's kind of the opposite actually of what we've talked about recently, which is these kids that are overscheduled. But this is the danger of being underscheduled in today's environment as opposed to our environment. Underscheduled in our environment, we went and built forts and rode bikes and, did all sorts of, went down to the stream and, did things. And whereas today, if you're underscheduled, they're on their default screens. So I think that there's a level of balance for sure, but I would rather have my kid be slightly overbooked and being active, moving, than underbooked and filling the time with YouTube shorts and Instagram and Snap face and
Snap talk.
So here's find the other activity. It doesn't have to be through school. It could be martial arts. It could be you playing basketball every single day in the driveway. It could be running. It could be weekend hikes. It could be learning to BMX bike, skateboard, like whatever that, go to a gym and learn how to do parkour. It doesn't have to be structured through the school or through the town, but find the other activity. Because when it's structured, it happens. And when it's not, it's again, this is the opposite, like make it frictionless, which is if it's scheduled, it's on the calendar and you paid for it and there's a teacher waiting for you. This is the reason that a lot of people get personal trainers, is because they're not going to work out otherwise. But that accountability buddy makes it happen. And that's where I would go with it, is those 3 things. Either create the black and white rules, have them do it with you, or get them to sign up for the next thing.
Love that. I would maybe add just one more, which is kind of what he said right at the end, which is I'm still active and play sports, but his mother's not. I actually think a really big move in the direction that he's asking for is to get mom moving as well. Not to maybe not go to the gym, maybe starting not play hockey or whatever it is, but I think that it's really powerful when a kid, 16-year-old or 6, sees mom and dad active and moving and again, playing sports, going on hikes, doing yoga, whatever it might be. It sends the signal that this is what we do around here. And I don't have a 16-year-old, so, don't take my advice on how to help get a 16-year-old to get off his screens. But I think having a conversation with his wife to say, like, how can we set a better example? How can we, quite frankly, how can we make sure we're not demonstrating the behaviors that we're telling him to stop? How do we make sure we're not on our phones all the time? How do we make sure that we're not watching Netflix every single night? How do we make sure that we're not getting too comfortable in complacency? What are we doing to show him that that's what it looks like? What are we doing to show him what it looks like to be moving, to be active, to be healthy, and to really own that first amongst themselves before they go and take any one of your strategies, which is going to be a harder sell than it would be if it's, hey, do you want to come to me to the yoga studio? Do you want to come to me to go hiking? Do you want to come play 3-on-3 basketball with my friends? Do you want to come to the CrossFit gym with me? Like, the example needs to be set first. And I think that the example needs to be set by both mom and by dad. If this is going to be really something that does stick for 16-year-old.
I think that's valid. And for sure, like if you change the environment, the organisms inside the environment change. That we know that. Old dog, new tricks, harder. So you're dealing with potentially 3 or 4 or 5 decades of ingrained behaviors and beliefs versus moldable plastic.
Agreed with that. Totally.
And it's being a come with me leader doesn't mean you need to change everyone before you pick and change one. So yes. Will there be more success, likelihood of success with 2 leaders? Yes. I wouldn't let mom hold you back from moving forward though.
Right. Yeah. It's a both and situation, not an either or, certainly. Yeah. Take that. All right. Hopefully that was helpful. All right. We're going to jump into our workout conversation about balancing life with spouses, speaking of. But first, a quick word of thanks from one of our sponsors this week, brought to you this week with support from Momentus. Head over to livemomentus.com. Use the code excellence to get yourself 20% off your first order. If you're looking to optimize your sleep and improve your overall health, look no further than Momentus, the brand trusted by the world's best teams and athletes. Sleep plays a fundamental role in our well-being, as we talk about all the time here, and Momentus understands that. That's why they formulated their sleep pack to help you achieve a restful night's sleep. It's packed with key ingredients that have been carefully selected to promote relaxation and enhance sleep quality. Here's what Andrew Huberman, who's an advisor to Momentus, says about their sleep pack. Quote, there are supplements that for most people will greatly improve their ability to fall and stay asleep. And the 3 main supplements in that category are magnesium threonate, apigenin, and L-theanine. These supplements, when taken alone or in combination with the other supplements mentioned in the pack, help many people to get really drowsy and fall asleep, sleep deeply, and feel more refreshed the next day without any grogginess, end quote. Designed by the world's best experts, used by the world's best teams and athletes, Momentus is making products for all of us. So head to livemomentus.com and use the code excellence to get 20% off your first order. Your sleep matters. Choose Momentus for a better night's rest. Okay, let us jump into our workout this week. We've got another listener question. This question is from Jay. He says, I'm a husband, a parent, an entrepreneur, and someone who takes my health and family relationships very seriously. My amazing wife is a public school teacher while I run my online business. I never would have been able to take the leap of faith into creative entrepreneurship without her support on so many levels. I'd love to know how you guys and your spouses balance your family and household roles, schedules, responsibilities, etc. in each of your respective households to balance life, work, health, etc. What has or hasn't worked? How has it evolved over the years? And how do you and or your spouses, or do you and or your spouses have any advice on the topic?
It's a big topic that I try to pay a lot of attention to, and certainly made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I probably speak more to the mistakes than I have the successes.
Yeah, let's start there maybe.
Okay, so we've talked about this in the past, but definitely one of the biggest mistakes I made early on is blurring as an entrepreneur. The reason entrepreneurship was attractive to me, the reason I wanted to do it was because of the freedom, and freedom is my number one value. So I loved the idea that I could own my schedule, I could own my attention, I could own the workflows and what we want to do, the vision, what we were creating. And then everything that created the blurriness around that, because there is no set structure of come to the corporate office from 9 to 5, you have your lunch and, you brown bag it, or you go out to the local deli and then you come back and, 5 o'clock, the whistle blows and you Flintstone your way back to the house. I love that, when I had a young family, the family could come to the gym and I could see that, because Heather was essentially a customer of the business. She would bring the kids there and I could hold them and see them and play with them during the middle of the day. And it was not only accepted, to me, it was expected. Like, this is kind of the reason I got into this thing, was to be able to do this, to have that freedom. Similar with this level of freedom that entrepreneurship provided, I could go home at any time I wanted to. So I, for a while, did what I thought was the really good dad thing, which was I went home at 3:00 every day so I could spend the afternoon at home and being a part of the kids' lives, realizing how short and fast this thing goes by. What I didn't realize at the time was how unproductive that was for both me as a father and as an entrepreneur. We today, fast forward, a decade later, and the kids don't come to the work environments. And that's not because they're in school. They don't, even when they weren't. I learned that it didn't take long to realize the mistakes. And really, Heather called them out a lot. Because what ended up happening was, when the kids were at work, I couldn't do work well and I couldn't do dad well, because I was conflicted in everything. I knew that I needed to do some work, but the kids are here, so I want to pay attention to them. I want to pay attention to the kids, but I have work to do and need to do this. And now nothing is getting done well. It's our case study against multitasking. Then the same thing happened when I went home, thinking I'm being the really good dad, going to spend, the whole afternoons with my kids. I'm there, but I'm at home, but I have my computer open and I'm totally distracted. And the kids are going, let's play on the trampoline. Let's go outside. Let's do it. I'm like, yeah. But I just gotta finish this thing. And I will in a second, but sorry, but I'll do this. And what ended up becoming really obvious after Heather called it out was, again, clear lines. Like, clear lines help so much. So I now leave the house at 7 a.m. and I come home at, right now it's about 5:30, sometimes 6 o'clock. But that's like the clear lines. I'm here for that time, and this is what I do during that time. But what's also helped, bringing Heather into it again, is the clear lines between responsibilities. And it's my responsibility to run the business. It's Heather's responsibility, more challenging for this listener because his wife also has more of a career, is Heather does the kids' schedules, signs them up for things, does the family calendar, schedules all the carpools, does the doctor appointments, and it is a real job. But what I love about where we've gotten to is I help her and she helps me. So it's not delineated like, nope, sorry, hands off. That's your thing. I do the dishes. I try to. I'm definitely not 100%, but I try to do the dishes. At night, I do the kids' bedtime routine. I do the majority of the actual driving of the carpools and help out around the house as much as I can. I do a lot of the trash and the cleaning, and I'll fold laundry and do all those things. But it's not like, if it was on an accountability chart, those wouldn't be my roles and responsibilities. But I'm there to help and support because I want Heather to win. That's the thing. And then vice versa, Heather has become a coach at the gym again and runs our kids program. So it's not a huge role and she doesn't have a huge level of responsibility, but it's a massive help. It takes a lot off of my plate. And is it her job to make sure that the business does what the business is supposed to do? Nope. But she's there to help, and she helps in so many other ways beyond that, from what's going on in the facilities to branding stuff to communication to the coaches. And I keep her in the loop in terms of what's going on in the gym because I know how helpful that will be. So what hasn't worked is the blurriness and trying to do all things at all times. What has worked? Clear lines. Like clear lines have helped tremendously because it's as a parent and as a business owner, as a entrepreneur, the lines get murky. And even more so when our kids are actually customers of our business as well. So they both do this in here. So it's really easy for the whole thing to get kind of mix mashed. So that would be my suggestion for sure. But interested to hear because you have probably a closer situation to what he has than I do.
Yeah, for sure. First, I always laugh whenever this subject brings up because I was there and I remember the days of like the littles running around the gym, and I remember thinking, and I say this laughingly, which is like if the kids came in when you and I were in a meeting or like group of us, I was like meeting's over, because even if you stayed in the room, even if you still tried, it was like, okay, I get it, kids are here, and if this isn't the formal wrap up of that meeting, it is the emotional and intellectual wrap. Yeah, exactly. So I remember those days well. And I agree with you that the drawing of those lines, I think, make everything better. So I hear you on that. Yeah. In terms of Jay's question, my life is probably a little bit closer to his than yours. And I second the drawing of lines. And I think for me, I very intentionally tried to build a life where I am an active, not that you're not, of course. So caveat first, is what I'm not saying is opposed to what you just said, but what I'm trying to do, I've made decisions distinctly in line with the desire to be a very active parent in the house and with my wife and for my kids. Again, not at all saying that's not what you're doing. Just our situation is different for various reasons. And so, things like what I do for work. Like I don't want to go to an office from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Like I think back, like that's what my dad did. My dad, we never saw him from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. He came home for dinner, and I don't know if he put us to bed. I don't remember, but I just have made the decision, like to your point, which is like these years go by so fast, and I would rather be here more than I'm not here. And so I've made decisions to make sure I can do that as best I can. So that's part of it, is just like you have to make the decision to be an active participant. You have to make a decision to be an equal participant in the raising of kids or the running of the house or all the other various things. It doesn't, for whatever reason, I don't know that it happens naturally and by accident. Like you've got to really figure out this is of value, because only when you do that, I think, will you make the harder decisions to act in accordance to that value, versus the easier thing, which for men, 90 whatever percent of the time is just like the woman takes care of the kids. And again, I just like, that's clearly not what you're doing. And that's clearly not what I want to be doing as the sort of default state. And so I think it helps to know that is what, and I think Jay's also implying the same thing, which is like, I don't want to just hand that part of life off. I don't want to, I either can't or I don't want to. And then the little itty bitty things, like the tactical things, clear lines. I think where Michelle and I have run into trouble is when we haven't communicated really well about what's working and what's not working. Things like, bedtimes or driving various places or whatever it might be. When you don't communicate, like, this isn't working, you oftentimes don't fix it. And then it's just resentment built up, and then it's struggle and it's stress, and all the while nothing is actually getting any better. And so clear lines, I think, and I think that this is what you've learned and what I continue to try to learn and do better, which is like clear lines starts with clear communication. And until you've got clear communication, then you can't draw the lines where they need to be drawn. You can assume, oh, I'm doing great. Like I do the laundry every once in a while and I try to get the dishes done, but that might not actually be the pain point. It might be something else that you're not thinking about or that you're not seeing. And so it starts with clear communication. And that to me is quite frankly a lot harder than anything else. It's being able to be open to the recognition that, oh, this isn't working as well as perhaps it could, or it's not working as well for you as it is for me. and like really wading into that conversation and recognizing like, I've still got much more to work on here. I thought we were doing well, but I missed that, or I wasn't thinking about that, or that one I thought was fine, but it isn't. And so to me, I think it's what you and Heather have done really, really well. And I've always appreciated about that with you guys is I think you guys are really good communicators, and probably over the many years, you've done that poorly until you've gotten it better. But I think that's to me the place where if and when I struggle, it's the communications part of it.
Yeah. I think I liked what you said there. When you said, what time is bedtime? That cued something for me as well, is the amount of effort we put into getting on the same page as those things. Like just this morning, we're like, what time should Bodhi, our 11-year-old, he's down in the morning having breakfast with us. What time does he need to go upstairs to brush his teeth? This is the third day and we're trying to narrow it in. And we're like, this is going to sound like but it's just like when you have that clarity, we're like, is it 6:50 or is it 6:48? Like that. And it sounds weird to have that conversation, but we've had this 3 days in a row trying to get it right. We're like, and today we're like, it depends if he comes downstairs does he already have his socks and shoes on? And that's the thing we didn't have nailed in because we thought it was 6:50 because he has to be out the door at 6:55. And we've been doing 6:50, but he's been going upstairs to not only brush his teeth, but put his socks and shoes on. And anyone knows an 11-year-old putting their socks and shoes on, that's not a 1-minute process.
No, neither for a 6-year-old either.
And I don't. So we're like, okay, so it is, and just like that level of communication is, and it sounds like we're getting into a different conversation than Jay asked, but this is what creates the balance in terms of centered in calmness. And when you have centered in calmness, everything else, it's easy to navigate. If you're in a rough ocean with whitecaps and big swells and you don't know what's coming next, that's when it's hard to have a balanced boat. But if the water's calm, it's really easy to have that next conversation that you're alluding to, Patrick, which is like, hey, where can I also help out? Like, hey, I'm struggling here. Like you can have, but if people are already in survival mode, that's when it gets really challenging because people get triggered really easily. Somebody goes like, hey, I could actually, Patrick, I could use a little bit more help with getting the kids out in the morning. And you're like, are you serious? Do you know like how hard it is for me to do and what I'm already doing, all these things? But if there's a level of calmness already, those conversations can happen very productively and naturally, and they don't have to be forced as well. Now, it needs to be done with intention, like we've always talked about. But to me, this is the idea is if you nail the small stuff, the big stuff can then happen. I think a lot of times we try to have the big, hard conversations of like, what are your values? What do you see out of life? How do you want to raise these kids? Like that's really hard. If we get hey, does Bodhi need to be up at 6:48 or 6:51 to brush his teeth so that we're not in this chaos mode, running out, grabbing backpacks, stuffing lunches into his bag? I'm saying this because this is also what happens. But create the structure for calmness systematically, and then all of a sudden the other things can have, you can have productive conversations that don't get people triggered into a place that's going to lead to where we don't want it to lead.
Right. Yeah, I think embedded in this whole conversation is I think you said calm, but I think it's sort of the anti-stress, right? Like, what do we need to do to reduce the amount of stress in this house such that we can communicate clearly, calmly, without getting ourselves upset, without, all of our hairs being on fire. So I think that is important to point out. One thing that's in Jay's question that I'm curious your thoughts on, because it's something I think about because I'm, again, in a similar position, which is like, Jay says, he's running this business. He's a creative entrepreneur. Great. His wife's a teacher. And one of the things that I think about a lot is like, again, as hard as we work and as lucky as we get to be to do the work that we do, one of the things that can be easy to forget is when the other person maybe doesn't have that creative outlet or that space to go do the thing that they want to do, right? With Heather, and again, I don't know what the situation, but like Heather's plants or certainly the gym or all the many things that Heather loves doing. If it was the case that like you got the opportunity to go run this business that you love doing or these businesses that you love to do, and you get to go every single day, you get to go to the office with these people, et cetera. And she doesn't have any space to do anything in that realm for herself. I think that's where it can also get really tricky for the person, or it can get tricky if you're the person who does get those things through work or through whatever other endeavors you might have, right? Whatever else gets your time. And so I think that that's really important to recognize is, am I in the position that I'm in, if we're lucky enough to be in that position, am I also giving her or him the space to go pursue whatever it might be that they are also interested in doing, whatever their curiosities are, whatever their passions might be. And I think that's been really hard for me here. And it's mostly like just the stage that the kids are in. They're 3 and 6. So it's still they very much need us for darn near everything. But it's also like, okay, am I making sure that Michelle has a little bit of time every week to fill in the blank, whether it's go to yoga, whether it's go meet up with her friends, because I do get a lot of satisfaction from work. And I get to have conversations like this with you on a regular basis. So like I can do that. It's great. And it's important, I think, for me to remember that she needs to go outside of work to get to get the things that I get to get inside of work. And again, I think to Jay's point, he probably gets a lot of these feel goods, this creative energy, this sort of sense of accomplishment and purpose through work. And then when he gets to go home, it can just be about home, or it could be about the kids, or it could be about the relationships. Whereas his wife, depending on how she feels about being a teacher, might spend all of her time doing a job that's hard and stressful, and that might not satisfy whatever creative energy she might have. And then she's got to come home and make sure that the kids are okay and cook dinners and et cetera, right? And so I think it's also just really important to remember we need to give each other space as much as we need to give each other support. Go meet up with your friend. I got the kids tonight. Go take a yoga class. I'll figure out dinner. Don't worry about it, right? Like, I think that's just as important. And again, I think it's something that over the years I've learned is important enough to put the work into to make sure it's happening.
There's a lot of good stuff in there. I completely agree. You're a team. We want to win together.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
We want to win together. And to do that, there's a couple important things. Yes, you said, we got to allow them to fill their cups, right? And in order to do that, it helps to come in with a little bit of sense of perspective of where they might be coming from. Because this certainly happened early when we had young kids. I like to come home, and I want home to be my sanctuary away from work. I'm the exact opposite where I was when I had what we just talked about. Now I come home and I don't even want to talk about work at all. Like I've been putting out fires, and I'm so grateful for what I get to be able to do, but it's a lot. Like, I'm working really hard when I'm at work. When I come home, I don't want to do any of it. I want it to be the yin to the yang again, that thing. But when Heather was with young kids, I can imagine this is Jay's wife's example too, especially because she's with, she teaches young kids. Heather was craving adult interaction, and I want to come home and I just want to like chill. I want to go in the backyard and grab the hose and like water my blades of grass, because that's what happens when you become a dad. Yeah. It's like all of a sudden you want to take care of grass. Yeah. So, I could, not having that perspective of like understanding that Heather really wants to have and her asking about work is her way to connect about this thing. Well, now I'm not seeing it from, I'm not her biggest fan at this point. It's about me, and I just need to understand that whether it's, yes, go out and do a yoga class, go have a drink with the girls, go and go for a walk, go and write your blog post. Like, what is the place that you do that thing? I got this, let's talk about work because I got you there too. Like, it's about it's a terrible saying. I won't say it's a terrible saying. It's not what it sounds like at the beginning, but happy wife, happy life is not the thing.
Right.
So it's not a matter of just like, okay, just do everything we can to make wife happy, but it's not that as well. And I want to be her biggest fan, and I do want her to be happy. And now here's what I've had this perspective from a long time, this approach, which is I have a vision of what I want our relationship to be. There's no such thing as perfect, so it's not going to be that. It's not going to meet my expectation. It will not be that thing. But we've talked about this before, with enough hard work, dedication, and patience, I can get really, really close to that. But not on my timeline and not without bumps in the road. That's everything. You can get the body you want. You can achieve the career success you want. You can live the life you want with enough commitment and patience, but you can't get there on your timeline, and you can't get there without bumps in the road. And once you bring that perspective to a balanced home life, it's kind of like the same thing as in the gym, right? Like, yeah, every day in the gym is not going to be awesome. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to be tired. You're going to have days that you don't feel like going to the gym. And you're going to feel like there's weeks and months that you feel like you're making no progress. But we overestimate what we can accomplish in a day, a week, and a month, and we drastically underestimate what we can accomplish in a decade. And if we took that longer horizon to what we're trying to create in our home life, all of a sudden it creates more centeredness, balance, calm, perspective, and you have more willingness for them to have the freedom in the near term, them being the spouse, in the near term, because you know what you're trying to create in the long term. And that's, I think, if anything that's helped me along the way is that, Heather sometimes she says like, I can't even believe you stayed with me. Like when she looks back at like some of the things that, and she's so self-reflective and, she's the most vulnerable person I've ever met. And she points out her faults more than anybody else. So she thinks that she remembers herself as like not a good person. Like 10 years ago, I'm like, you were awesome. And I loved you then. She's like, but she's grown so much in the last decade. She's grown more than I have. And she looks back on the habits and the way that she kind of did things in the past. And she's like, oh my gosh. And it's like, well, even if I like saw any of those things, which I probably didn't see as many as she thinks that she had back then, they wouldn't have bugged me because it's not about where we are right now. It's this life that we're building together. It's always about what are we building together and what's this thing going to look like in 10 years from now. And let's just take little tiny steps to get to that point.
Hopefully that was helpful to you, Jay. Thank you for your questions. Thank everybody for their questions. If you want to get a question into the queue, find me on Instagram at PS Cummings. Drop me a DM. I promise you I'll add it to our list and try to get into a future episode. We are going to wrap this episode up with a new shout out and a cool down where we're just going to point you towards a documentary worth watching. But first, quick word of thanks from one of our sponsors, brought to you this week with support from BetterHelp. Go to betterhelp.com/excellence to learn more about them and get 10% off your first month of completely virtual therapy. BetterHelp believes everyone deserves access to quality therapy, which is why they built an online platform designed to make therapy convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. That means with BetterHelp, you can start your therapy journey from the comfort of your own home. No more commuting or waiting rooms. Simply fill out a brief questionnaire, and their advanced algorithm will match you with a licensed therapist who's the perfect fit for your needs. But what else sets BetterHelp apart? Well, it's the ability to switch therapists at any time at no additional charge. They understand that finding the right therapist is crucial, and they want to ensure you have the best possible experience on your mental health journey. Therapy matters because your mental health matters. It's not just about finding solutions to problems. It's about building resilience, improving relationships, and gaining valuable insights about yourself. So take that first step toward happier, healthier you. Visit betterhelp.com/excellence today and join the millions of people who have already discovered the benefits of online therapy. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. All right, shout out. It's a bit of a long shout out. I'll try to read it relatively quickly, but it's a cool one. This is from Jeanette. She says, I'm a 21-year-old young woman from Finland. I've been meaning to write this message for about a year now, but I've never known where to start. I found the sport of CrossFit when I was 15 years old in 2017, but didn't have the courage to go to a box until 2018. I did my CrossFit level 1 in 2019 and was looking to become a coach at an older age, but life has kept me too busy for that. Now I've been doing CrossFit for 5 years and have been prioritizing weightlifting for the last year. I started listening to Chasing Excellence when I was 15. Thinking back at that age, nothing you guys were talking about really stuck with me for the first few years of the podcast. I would try to understand and take everything with me to my life, but always felt overwhelmed and a failure through that. Without realizing it at the time, I was subconsciously building a pretty solid foundation for my current self and for the way I think and live my life as a young adult. I've learned how to keep improving my self-awareness, emotional regulation, and getting past the reactiveness of feelings. And I could not be more grateful for you guys for helping me get to where I am. Also listening to Catherine's story at a young age and following the CrossFit community, becoming part of it and learning from all the great coaches out there, but mostly from you guys, has been the most impactful thing in my young life. Learning the tools to battle incredible anxiety and learning the importance of physical and mental health has brought me a long way. I seriously would not be in college right now without you, let alone this healthy physically and mentally. All in all, just want to say thank you and let you know that your words and lessons really do have an impact on others' lives. And then she actually sent a picture. She has a tattoo of, I'd mentioned this to you. I got to send you the picture still. She's got a tattoo of Catherine climbing the rope. So cool. She just wanted you to know that she also got that. So
heck yeah, it's amazing.
Shout out to Jeanette. All right, cool down. We're going to make this real quick. There's a documentary coming out. Actually, by the time this episode comes out, the documentary will have come out. It's called Small Town Strong. I think during the CrossFit Games, CrossFit pointed to it once or twice, which I think is how I stumbled on it. But folks can go to smalltownstrong.com to watch a trailer, and you should be able to, again, by the time we publish this, actually purchase the documentary. And I'm just going to read the quick synopsis. Realizing no one is coming to save them from a growing opioid crisis, the people of Portsmouth, Ohio, led by Army veteran Dale King, band together to create real change. Their unorthodox strategy takes on addiction and recovery through fitness, fueled by the energy and community of Dale's gym. Dale runs a CrossFit gym, and that was the spark to many, many more things. But Dale was kind enough to send us an advanced copy of the film. I've watched most of it. You haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but it's not an easy watch. It's not a particularly, I can't say it's super fun, but I think it's really important. And it reminds me a little bit of the conversation we had about your trip to prison. We did that, whenever we talked about that last month, in the sense of, in a number of ways, but one of them being the power of community, the power of role models, the unique power of CrossFit, and specifically like group CrossFit, like CrossFit amongst others. There's a lot of similarities there to, I think, the lessons you pulled out of your trip out to prison. And I think there's also the lesson of seeing people for who they are and not for what they seem to be, not for, actually moving into individuals instead of always staying very zoomed out and looking at something as vast and multifaceted as the opioid crisis, right? It's really easy for us, for you and I, for us collectively listening to this, to just stay real far back and say, like, that's happening all the way over there and it has nothing to do with me. But I think one of the great things this documentary did was it actually brought you down to the individual level, the human level. And you think, that, like, I know that person. I could know that person. How did that person end up there? And you realize that, like many things, the context matters so much. And until you understand the context of an individual's life, you don't understand anything. And so again, it's called Small Town Strong. I highly recommend it. You can find it at smalltownstrong.com.
I'm incredibly excited to watch and check it out. I just got the link the other day, so I haven't had a chance to do it. But this is what we do. Like, this is what we're trying to do. Is whether it's through this podcast, whether it's through the virtual comp train platform, or it's CrossFit New England, we're trying to impact and change people's lives. That has kind of gone towards for a period. It kind of went to the echelon, the tip of the spear, in terms of like getting people to be the fittest amongst the fittest. And this is the refocus I've had over the last year, how impactful this can be for the opposite end of that spear, the tail end of the spear, and the people that actually need it the most. And whether it's through the prisons or I've started a relationship and kind of been working with the Phoenix, which is the nonprofit that helps people battle substance abuse through CrossFit. And the kind of we talked about in the prison episode, the success that this program is having, meaning CrossFit, the success that CrossFit is having, changing these people's lives. And that's why I'm so excited to watch this. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that a fitness program can be doing the things it's doing on par with like what AA does. Like, I think that probably everybody knows somebody that's been through AA, and those people that have been through it owe their lives to that organization. What CrossFit is doing for this population is like that. It's amazing. And they're not doing it through the 10-step program. They're doing it through thrusters and burpees in a group environment. It's incredible.
Love it. All right. That's all we got for this week. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. Thank you for sharing the show, for your ratings and your reviews. One more reminder, if you want to get a question into a future episode, find me on Instagram at @PSCummings. Drop me a DM. I'll add it to our list. Ben and I will be back next week for another episode of Chasing